And I am so excited. Dr. Sabrina Starling has agreed to come back, right? She was on episode 67. It was an amazing, episode. And she's bravely agreed to be the first one to try this live broadcast version of this thing. So we so appreciate her coming on. Dr. Starling is the business psychologist and author of the How to Hire Best series and the founder of Tap to Potential. Her latest book is How to Hire the Best, the Entrepreneur's Ultimate Guide to Attracting Top Performing Team Members. There it is, right there. Yes. And this has been a really successful series. She's had some variations of the title in the series before. So super excited to hear about what's in this new book. Sure, we're gonna tie it to deals as we have in the past. I'll tell you what, the rest of her bio is going to be in the show notes. Hopefully you've heard her before. Dr. Sabrina Starling, welcome back to the DealQuest Podcast.
Thank you, Corey. I'm excited. And the conversation that we had last time we just went in such a good direction with respect to really focusing on how to make the most of your time and freeing up your time in the business. So it's a lot of fun to get to come back and talk about how to hire the best and team members and how that relates to deal making, because it has multiple connections there.
Yeah, no question. And the thing about it is, so one of the things that, we did talk about is, listen, the odds of you being able to do deals to scale your business, if you are busy just in the business, right, which is a lot of what we focused on last time, are probably slim to none. And this other piece that we're now talking about building team, I mean, one of the ways that listen, when I started my law firm, right, I was ordering my own supplies from Staples. I was running my own financial reports. I was doing all of these things that, weren't practicing law nor getting business. And, it's only over time that you build team and build systems and get yourself out of that. And then you can focus on growing the firm organically, but also doing deals. And of course, it makes the firm and the company, whatever organization you have, less dependent upon you so that, you build enterprise value. So that already gave you the punchline.
Yeah.
And I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's sort of the punchline.
Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions to smaller deals that you can do even without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started.
So I want to dive right into this new book that you have and, tell us about the book. Tell us about, who it's for and, what people will get out of it when they read it. I won't say if they read it. I'll say when they read it.
Okay. So this book is for you entrepreneurs who want to grow your business. You've been burned by hiring in the past, or you've heard hiring horror stories and you're thinking, forget it. I will just keep ordering my supplies at Staples. I don't want to have to deal with somebody else in the business. This book is for you. And so I wrote this book because probably 7 or 8 years ago now, I was coaching small business owners who had tremendous opportunity to grow their business. And they were passing on growth opportunities because they did not have the team members to deliver on the deals they could make. The main reason we are entrepreneurs is for growth. So what is it like to be an entrepreneur who just decides I'm not going to grow anymore? I'm capped out because I can't get good team members, And so I had people coming to me saying, Sabrina, you're the business psychologist. Can you help me coach my warm body team members and make them better employees? And that way I can grow the business that way. And so I tried that and it doesn't work. I will tell you, you cannot take a warm body team member and coach them up and make them into an A player. It really requires, for a business to grow, you need a team of A players. And one of the things that when I wrote the book, I was in the mindset initially of, we can't get A players as small business owners. We can't afford to pay them, because that's what I was hearing my clients say to me over and over. And then one morning I woke up and I just had this question running through my head of, what if that's not true? What if it's not true that because we're small business owners, we can't compete with the big guys? And so I went out there and I started looking for small business owners who had A players on their teams. And I asked if I could interview them and find out how they attracted those A players to their teams. And Corey, every one of them said to me, I have no idea how I got this person on my team. It was luck. And Dr. Sabrina, if you find answers, please come back and tell me, because I'm just shooting in the dark. I have no idea.
I'm just going to stop you for a moment here. I really want to hear the rest of this. But you and I, in our private conversation, in the last conversation, talked about some of the work we've done, consistently and whatever. And I believe that Bob Proctor, his name came up. And Bob talks about this conversation of unconscious competence, right? In other words, like he had a similar experience where he'd speak to people, they'd have these successes, but they had no idea how they did it. Right?
Yeah.
So this idea of unconscious competence is great, but until we sort of parse through that and figure out what the commonalities are and what they really do unconsciously, we can't replicate it. So please go ahead with the context.
So spoiler alert, when it comes to attracting A players to your business, everything that you know about marketing to attract the right clients and customers to your business applies to attracting A players. And so as I started interviewing them, what I found is they were using networking and word of mouth highly effectively to attract these A players, but they had not done it systematically. And because it wasn't being done systematically in their businesses, they weren't having repeated success. Well, when we have a system, when you have the how to hire the best system in your business, you install that, you hone it and refine it, and suddenly your success in hiring A players starts to go up and up and up. So what I've discovered is that when we follow traditional hiring practices that we've all been led to believe that we should do, our failure rate is going to be about 75%. So we have a 1 in 4 chance of hiring an A player if we follow traditional hiring practices.
Wow.
And traditional hiring practices are where you decide you need to fill an opening. And you post a job ad, you put it out there on the job boards, and applications come in. You look through those applications, you pick the best of the ones that come in, you invite some people in for interviews, you pick the best person out of the interviews, and there you go. Well, that's what sets us up to mishire. And there's a better way to do it. And so that's what I teach in How to Hire the Best is the simple networking strategies and intentional. So we have to start with the end in mind, know what we're looking for, and then use what we know about good networking and good marketing to attract them to our businesses.
So let me ask you this, because is that a process that starts when you need somebody, or is that something that you're doing? I don't know the answer because I have not had the pleasure of reading your book yet, but I'm going to get it. I know it came out recently, but I had an inkling that's probably a leading question because, because I can't imagine that you just start when you need to find somebody.
No, that's the worst time to start because then you're under pressure and you really are at the mercy of whoever shows up at your doorstep, and you're really picking the best of the worst, because one of the things we forget to think about is A player mentality.
Yes.
A players think and operate and move differently in life than others. And so one of the things, if you just wait till you need to hire somebody and you post an ad and you wait to see who shows up, you're getting people who are looking for work, who are unemployed. You're getting people who actually are on job boards looking for jobs. That does not bode well for you. And so A players move from one opportunity to the next.
Yes.
And they are usually looking for work or making a transition because they're looking for another opportunity and because they heard of another opportunity. And that's how they navigate. And so we want to structure our hiring system to cater to what we want to attract, which is A players. And so we want to be networking to attract those A players long before we need them. And the best time to start thinking about hiring is the point in your business where you have steady lead generation. Because as soon as you have steady lead generation, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have good conversion because you're going to work on improving your conversion rates. Well, once you have good conversion rates, now you're going to have a capacity problem, which is when most people go to hire. So you want to be doing the networking to attract those A players long before you have that capacity problem coming down the road.
This is such an important element. And it fits into a bucket that, in my work, I call entrepreneurial freedom, right? So first of all, we're in general, as entrepreneurs, what we really are not looking to do, but unfortunately many of us do, is just buy ourselves another job that happens to be with our own company,
Yes.
right? but the true entrepreneurs, and I'm not saying that in any kind of judgmental way. I think anybody who ventures out on their own, even if they've created their own job, it takes courage and it takes fortitude not to, rely on someone else for a paycheck. So I'm not judging anybody. But most of those folks that I know, there are some people who are very happy with, sort of having that, and they're going to be a solo and they make a nice lifestyle business. And unlike some people in the entrepreneurial community, I don't look down on lifestyle businesses if they're a choice. However, most people I know do want to scale to some extent. They may not necessarily want to be the next Facebook or Tesla or whatever, but they want to scale to the point where they're running a true business and where they haven't just bought themselves a job, right? Yes. Where they can. We talked last time about them being able to take that 4-week.
Yeah. So I want to stretch even the definition of lifestyle business, because when you have team, you really do have the opportunity to create a lifestyle business.
That's what we say.
Right. So you can be away from the business for an extended period of time when you have systems and when you have A players running those systems.
Yeah. So, for me, the goal of most entrepreneurs is what I call entrepreneurial freedom. And whether that is just have a business where you can take time off, where you can be with your family, where you can travel, whatever it is your other passions are, and have it still run, whether you're setting that up for exit or not, right? It's the same thing. So, but what it also does is it does really prepare you to, have a business that builds value, right? Because businesses that are dependent upon one, or a couple of people are less valuable than businesses that can run without them.
Yeah. Nobody wants to buy a job. People want to create their own job and go out on their own and do that. But no one is going to come along and say, hey, I hear you work 70 hours a week. This sounds like a really good opportunity. I'm interested in buying that from you.
Well, I want to pay you millions of dollars to work 70 hours a week. No. So building a business that has a system for hiring A players built into it, now you're adding value to that, and it is part of strategic planning for an exit. So I want to talk about the definition of an A player.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, listen, I said this to you the last time we were together, and you can totally disagree with me. Don't feel like I have had a philosophy, some people say you can never have all A players, right? I think practically the odds of having all A players, it's challenging. Let's put it that way. But that's got to be the goal. But I define A players a little differently than some other people. And you tell me whether you think I'm off or on. Mm-hmm. Some people look at A players as everybody's got to be an all-around superstar in everything, right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, if you are Michael Jordan, to use a basketball analogy, right? You need a bunch of other Michael Jordans. And the way I look at it is, Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen, and he had Bill Cartwright, and he had these, people who were amazing at what they did, but they were not necessarily, the one superstar. And my view is that A players, some of them are role players, mm-hmm. but they're A's in that role of what they do.
Exactly.
Some people disagree. They think, oh, no, you need A players. I'm like, first of all, I think a lot of those A players are going to be running their own show if they really can, have that big vision and do everything. So in any case, I don't want to drone on. Do you agree with or disagree with my premise that the definition of A players can be within a particular role of what they do, and they're still considered an A player?
Absolutely. So first off, the only people that I know that think that we can be A players at everything is us entrepreneurs.
Right.
We delude ourselves. And we all have our own unique gifts and talents where we shine. What I'm doing here with you right now, I'm in my unique gift and talent. I'm talking about what I know well. If you ask me, how to go repair a tire on my car, I'm going to be like, I'm going to look like a D player, Corey. So there are certain qualities that exist across A players, but the A players that you need are the ones who have the unique gifts and talents, personality strengths to do the role that you need them to do exceptionally well. And they need to fit with your core values, your immutable laws in your business, because that's your culture. So, but the qualities that exist across the board with A players is that we are go-getters, problem solvers. We don't get stymied. If my car gets a flat, I'm going to be on YouTube looking up a video. I'm not going to just sit there and go, oh, I give up. I'll wait till someone drives by to rescue me. That whole victim mentality. A players don't do that. We take matters into our own hands, and we're going to try to figure it out, and we're going to use our resources. And that's in an entrepreneurial business. That's what is needed, is a team full of people who think like that. And we really can't afford to have people who don't think like that in our businesses. And because payroll is the biggest expense. If we have team members who have more of that passive, I'm just going to wait to be told what to do, we will drive A players out of our businesses. So it is possible to have a team full of A players, but it does not mean that those A players are going to be great at everything. It means they're in their right role, working from their unique gifts and talents, doing what the business needs them to do the most.
I love that, not just because it was consistent with what I think, but because, and you said something that is so important that I want to make sure people didn't miss. And that is that you are actually going to drive out your A players, right? If you don't have one of the characteristics that I believe that A players have is that they want to be with other A players. They get frustrated. Okay. Because they've got to deal with B and C players. It's the same thing. Listen, I talk about in some of the professional organizations I'm involved in and things like that. I've been on the board or whatever. And I'm like, listen, if you don't hold certain standards, like, if you want to attract the top people in a particular industry, right, you need to have other people in a particular industry, right? And what you can't do is you have to have some sort of standard. That doesn't mean, by the way, that you may not have other programs that support more junior people, less experienced people that help bring them up. Right. But people want to be with peers. All right. And they want to choose the times where they are with people who they can give to, support, mentor, all that kind of stuff. But they don't want to live there because they're, every A player I know is still looking to learn and grow.
Yes.
Right. I happen to believe you can learn something from every human being. So I want to create that context. However, the ability to really learn and grow comes from when you spend more time with people at or above your level. Like, know that if you play sports, you don't get better by playing a sport against somebody who's worse than you. You get better by playing a sport against people who are equal or better, and business is that way as well, in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. A players want to learn and grow. They want to be stretched, and they want people around them who stretch them, not people that they have to clean up after and fix problems and clean up messes. It's very frustrating for A players to deal with that. And so, in terms of getting your business to the point where you have more and more A players on your team, one thing that you can think of instead of just firing everyone, if you don't have any A players or if you only have one and then you're like, no, Dr. Sabrina's telling me I need to fire the rest of them. This is horrible. Instead of thinking that way, think about hiring. So every time you have the opportunity to hire, work on how you're going to hire someone who is, if you have D players, work on hiring B players. I mean, that in and of itself will make a big difference in your business. But for each role that you hire for, make yourself very intentional. I'm going to go for an A player in this role. And then over time, you will improve the quality. And there's also a tipping point that happens when if you have a team of 5 and you get 3 A players on that team, those 2 B players and D players, they're not going to stick around. Like, they will feel the squeeze from the A players, and it's no longer easy to hide out anymore, which is what they've been doing before you had all those A players on your team.
Yeah, it's amazing how people self-select out. Well, one of two things happens, I think, sometimes. They either step up, or they self-select out, or sometimes if they don't self-select out, you got to make a choice. But it's amazing how often they'll self-select out because it's very uncomfortable for people to be around a bunch of A players and not be operating at that level.
Yeah. And the other thing too, what's interesting is somebody can show up in your company as a C player and quit and go to work for someone else and shine. And what's going on there is a combination of 2 things. They weren't in a role that was maximizing their unique gifts and talents, and they found a role where they could do that. But there also may have been a misalignment with core values. So that person's core values may not have matched with the company's immutable laws or core values. And so when they go into a different context, they are suddenly an A player. So it doesn't mean that we're A players across the board all the time. I personally have had a job where I'm sure I showed up as a B or C player just because I was miserable. They weren't using my talents. They had me doing other stuff. And I was like, oh, this is awful. And so for us as entrepreneurs, one of the things we can pay attention to, for those of us who delude ourselves that we're good at everything in our business, one of the things we should be paying attention to is what are those things that we put off, procrastinate on, just don't feel like we're shining when we're doing those things. Those are the very first things we need to seek to delegate and find A players to take on for us because they will do it better than us and they will run circles around us and how they do it.
Yes. You raised 2 things, and I want to make a distinction between them. You said sometimes that they are not aligned with your core values, with your, that kind of stuff. And I think you believe as well that, well, if that's the case, then they shouldn't be with you. They should be somewhere else, right? You can't solve for that unless, right. But you also said that sometimes they will leave because they're not an A player in the role you have them on, but they find another place where they can be an A player because of the way the role is defined. So that brings me back to the conversation of, well, hang on, do we have to lose those people? Or how does people's individual abilities, like some companies have very defined roles and they try to find people to fit into them, right? Yeah. And some companies are more flexible in terms of how they define their roles based upon the unique skills and talents and, where people show up as an A player. So how does this conversation affect how you structure your business and how flexible maybe you can be to find a role for an A player if they're not operating as an A player in the role you have them in?
All right. So we have this at Tap the Potential. We have a role chart where we have people operating in different places on that role chart. I fill 2 or 3 roles. We have several other team members filling 2 or 3 roles right now. But we all have, every role that we're in has a clearly defined result that person who's filling that role is responsible for delivering. This creates a lot of flexibility in the team. We shift people around based on where their strengths are. And sometimes it takes a little while to discover someone's in a role where their strengths are not being fully utilized. And what shifts can we make? Where do they really shine? Where are their gifts and talents? And how can we move responsibilities around so they can be in that role? And, the other thing that'll happen is you might hire someone, they look really good on paper, they had incredible references, and you bring them in and you're like, is this the same person? What happened here? And that's a sign right there that maybe you're bringing them in for a role where they're not using their gifts and talents. And so, tools like People Map, Strengths Finder, all of those are great to open up the conversation around what are your strengths and what do you enjoy doing? And just making it easy and safe for people to say, this part of my job is fun. I don't like doing this part. I'll do it until we find someone else to do it, but I don't like doing this part. A lot of times team members don't feel like that's safe to say. And so at Tap the Potential, we're constantly having that conversation around, tell me what you like, what's fun, what's not fun. Let's figure this out and let's keep things shifting and moving so that we're all getting to work from our strengths.
I love it. It's for me, and people have heard me say this over and over again, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but it's what I call highest and best use.
Yes.
Right. All of us to be in our highest best use areas. For me, that means that we're great at it, but that's not enough. We got to be passionate about it as well. And that's not enough. It's got to have an impact. It's got to have leverage. It's got to make a difference, move the needle. Right. Mm-hmm. So we have all 3, if ideally, and listen, I work every day to have my businesses have everybody, being in their highest and best use areas. It's not realistic to think that everybody's going to be there 100% of the time and that everything's going to get done. We all have areas outside of that. But if you keep that mentality, some people call it people's superpowers or their unique gifts or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. For me, it's what I call highest and best use areas. I think that makes such a huge difference in businesses.
It absolutely does. And the other thing that is important is educating your team members about what is the sweet spot of this business and how do we become, first off, a lot of team members don't even know what profit means. So you want to talk to them about, we exist in business to be profitable because if we have no profit, we have no cash reserves and, we could be closing our doors next month. So talking to a team member and helping them understand the bigger picture of what the sweet spot of the business is and how to make the business profitable and how their role ties directly to that.
Yeah.
It's huge. I talk to A players in a lot of businesses. And one thing that I hear over and over when I ask them, what is the most important use of your time? If you can't get anything else done today or this week, what are you supposed to do? And I get this look like, oh, I do. I wear all these different hats. I don't know. They want me to do this. And they want me to do that. If we can just have that clarifying conversation with the A players on our team, the opportunity for their productivity to go up is exponential.
Yeah. I love it.
Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can invite you to a new way to determine your deal readiness. I created a fast and easy assessment that will determine exactly how deal ready you are. Once you complete the assessment, I use your responses to identify the obstacles that are holding you back from being a deal-driven growth genius. It's as easy as heading to CoreyKupfer.com/assessment. That's CoreyKupfer.com/assessment and filling out a few multiple choice questions. I'll be checking in after the episode to see what your results are. Now back to the show.
Obviously people should get the book, they should learn, but in terms of, in addition to just networking in advance, what's just one more tip on how you really find these A players?
Okay. So you want to identify your immutable laws in the business, and they come from you, the business owner. So think about the things where you felt really proud of what's going on in the business. That points to a core value or an immutable law. And think about the times when you were really ticked off. And that indicates that a core value or immutable law has been violated. And so identify what that is. And so if you can identify your top 3 to 5 immutable laws and use those as a screening mechanism, your chances of hiring right are going to go up considerably. Because what you're doing is you're bringing in people who are going to be a good fit for the culture. So if you can get an A player who matches your immutable laws, you're golden. So taking the time to just sit down and articulate that, that's one of the most powerful tips I can give here. When we take clients through massive transformations in their businesses, business owners with a year with us going from doing everything in the business to having a team and being able to take a 4-week vacation, having more money in their bank account than they've ever had before. And when we peel back the layers and we say, out of everything we did for you at Tap the Potential over the last year, what was the most impactful? One of them that I hear is you had me sit down, Dr. Sabrina, and figure out what our immutable laws are, because those drive everything in the business. It determines who you're going to do business with. It determines the clients you're going to work with. And then it determines the team that you're going to build.
All right. So let me drill down one more layer on that. I'm sure you've got a lot more, in the book, but we've identified our core values, immutable laws, whatever we want to call them, right? And we're clear on that. How in an interview do you determine? I know there's a big question, so I just want you can give us one piece of it, right? I know. How in an interview did you determine a match or lack thereof, right, of a candidate with those values? Because, it's an interview. So we haven't lived with these people. We don't know really what they're telling us versus who they really are. So do you have one tip there?
I absolutely do. So you have to remember, I'm a psychologist by training. So I love talking to people and sussing out who they really are. Yes. And here's my tip for doing that. Come up with the worst case scenario in your business. I had a client one time who was a real estate broker, and she was bringing on team members, and she described this worst case scenario where a new homeowner shows up, they're ready to close, and you can't, the owner of the business is gone. The previous owner has not left a key. The family's out in the car. They have their U-Haul. They have 5 dogs. It's August. They're hot and sweaty, and they have no way of getting into their new home. And I'm gone. I'm out of the country. You can't reach me. What are you going to do? And so when you're interviewing and you ask the candidate that question, you preface it by saying, I know you know nothing about our policies and procedures. I just want you to tell me in this scenario, what would you do? Mm-hmm. And you're listening for how they respond. You're listening for their thought process, and they will reveal their values in that statement right there. You're looking for somebody who is going to pull out all the stops. They're going to say, well, I'm going to put them in a hotel, and I'm going to get my own credit card out, and I'm going to trust that, the business owner is going to reimburse me for that decision because I'm doing what's in our client's best interest. They reveal themselves in their answers.
I love that. I'll throw one out there that I've used that I got actually from, and you can tell me what you think about it, Dr. Sabrina, which is that, I did many years ago, we took the team and did Zappos would do these culture trainings in Vegas, right? Where you can go in, you can visit their floor and see all the crazy stuff they do to create culture, whatever. But then they also had sort of a high level executive training program that you could pay for. And I sort of, I was going to say stole, but they gave it to us and, to use in the training. A couple of things that they do. And one question, which seems so strange, but for me, it gets at some of this stuff that I love to ask people, because it's not one, and I'm hesitant to even say it on here because I don't want it to get out there so much for people prepare for it, right?
Like this is going to be good.
Yeah, it's a question that like almost nobody's ever prepared for, right? Mm-hmm. Which is part of how you really start to see who people are, right? When they don't have their pat answers. If you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what would it be?
Oh.
And here's the key follow-up question, and why? Because it almost doesn't matter what the theme song is. The question is the why. Like, why did they pick that theme song? It's unbelievable how revealing that is to who people are. They often tell like sentimental or family stories or history stories or just something on why it inspires them. You really get to feel who they are. It's an amazing question. I've used it for probably a decade now, ever since we did that Zappos training. And
wow, that's gold here for the listeners to get that question. I'm going to just second that because we run retreats. And one of the ways that we open retreats is having our participants come and bring their theme song. And so we go up to the front and we play the theme song, and then they share why that theme song is so powerful.
I didn't even know that.
Tears flow, and people really share who they are at their core. Music speaks to us. And when we share our why of how we connect to music, we're real, we're vulnerable, we're being our most authentic self. So you have stumbled on an interview question that's golden.
Yeah. And I want to thank that training from Zappos. It's really, and it's so funny because I had no idea you did that. I mean, I think every time we speak, we find that there's so many alignment, with you and I. So it's amazing. Okay. Listeners may notice that I did not ask some of my typical open questions because I've asked them already last time Dr. Sabrina Starling was on, in terms of, and so go back to episode 67 if you want to hear about what she wanted to be when she was a little girl, because it, as I always joke, it probably it's almost never what people are doing now, right? And about her first deal, right? Because I don't want to re-ask those questions, but I do want to throw out a deal question to you. And can you think of any deal scenario, whether it was for you or a client or what you've seen with, in some of the people that you've consulted and trained and coached, that's just super fun or interesting or strange or challenge, like a great story around, around the deal experience? Anything come to mind? I know I'm putting you on the spot without any prep.
Look, let me think through my file here of, the best deals to me are the win-win-win scenarios.
Sure.
And I have to be careful because of confidentiality. So I can't reveal too much, but I will say that Tap the Potential in the last year has been heavily impacted by COVID. And so we have had to get scrappy ourselves to kind of pivot and readjust. And so one of the most touching deals that I can think of most recently is a client who shared with me something that she really valued about what we do for her that's just no longer possible for us to do. And so I said, let's take the core of this and let's figure out what is possible. And so when it comes to deal making, there's never a no. It's always that question of what is it that's most important to you and what's most important to me? And let's open up our thinking and let's think about what's possible. And that creates that win-win-win that we're all after.
Love it. Yeah. And listen, it's been an interesting time. I mean, I'm trying to remember when episode 67 was. I'm doing the math. And that was probably 10 months ago. So we were probably early COVID, right?
Early COVID. Yeah. A little naive maybe to what was really in store. I know at least
Yeah. So it's been interesting because, obviously most people have had to find a way to pivot, although there is definitely this, what they call this K economy where, a lot of people on that downstroke have been affected, restaurants and retail and then there's folks, a lot of service businesses, certainly financial services where I have a lot of clients. The market had that one dip and came back up and they're cruising, and we've been very fortunate. So there's such a dichotomy now. But even with the businesses that are doing well, they've had to pivot. Everybody's had to pivot in some way. And, and it's also, made for opportunities to create different products and services, but also different deals. And I think one of the things that's caused is people to look out for the kind of relationships, strategic alliances, joint ventures, just whatever it is, to support each other, right? To come through this, get more creative.
Right. There's a tremendous opportunity to get creative and to really look at who our top clients and customers are and what are they needing the most right now. In what opportunities do we have to show up and serve that way? Because their needs are very different this year than they were this time last year. And just having those conversations leads to opportunities and deals everywhere that can be created.
Love it. So let's show them the book one more time. There it is. Right? How to Hire the Best series. So obviously it's the latest book, but there's several others before this. Definitely check it out. I assume people can get it everywhere, Amazon and all the other places.
It's on Amazon. And if you want to get some great resources that go along with the book, I recommend going to tapthepotential.com/books with an S at the end. So tapthepotential.com/books.
Awesome. And is there an audio version or not?
There is. It is.
Awesome.
If it's out on, it may be already out on Audible, but if it's not, it's going to be out very soon. Audible is a little, just can't quite predict when they're going to release it.
Right. So either get it now or
very soon.
Yeah, or very soon. Yeah, I was amazed to find when I wrote my book, because I've become more so lately, but I was at that time not an Audible. I was a reader still. And I was amazed that I think 50% of entrepreneurs, do audio versions of books.
Absolutely. And I read the book, so you get my tone, my inflection. And I think that's a very different experience than when someone else reads the book. So
excellent. So folks, that's where, and I assume that website without the /books is where people can find out generally about you, right? Tap the Potential.
Tapthepotential.com is where you can find out all about me and the resources we have to support entrepreneurs in taking their lives back from their businesses.
I love it. Again, my normal closing question is about freedom, which we've talked about already on the last, so again, go back to episode 67 if you want to hear Sabrina's answer to the question of what freedom means to her. So to close it out, I'm just going to ask you, what is the thing, because one of the things I love about you and one of the things I think we've really connected with is that you love what you do. And you love it because you make such an impact on people. Like, the stories you tell, and you've been successful and all that stuff, but the stories you tell are not about how much your company's grown, how much money you made, whatever. It's about the impact that you have on the people that you work with. So I guess I'll close with the question of, what is it that particularly about that has you be passionate, that just, has you be, listen, the easy answer is I know you're in your purpose, right? But what is it about working with people the way you do that has you be so inspired?
When I have a husband or a wife or a child say to me, thank you for what you've done with my wife, husband, mother, father. We have so much, our quality of life at home is so much better. I get to spend time with my dad now and he's present with me. Like, it's priceless.
Yeah.
That's it. That's why I do what I do.
And folks, you can see, did you see the impact that had on the emotion that came up?
Yeah.
And I feel that way with a number of the things that I do. And it is such a gift, not only to be able to be an entrepreneur and, run our own show and make decisions, whatever, but when you do that in a way where you are on purpose and have the impact that you want to have, so much so that it makes you emotional, then that's the ticket. That's the formula. And that's part of what
that, Corey. That's just awesome to get to say that. It's made my day.
And listen, that's what you provide for people as well. So definitely check out Dr. Sabrina Starling's work. Check out, her last podcast with me. I so appreciate you coming on and being our first live video plus, typical audio podcast. This isn't the last time we're going to do this, but I am so thrilled that you came back on the DealQuest podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Corey. I think you're going to have tremendous success with your live video podcast. This is an awesome thing that you're doing.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. I want to invite you to a unique way to tap into the wisdom and experience of the DealQuest community. Join the DealQuest Deal Den Zoom calls, a free monthly 90-minute mastermind. In the mastermind, we address all the challenges you may be facing and help support you with the opportunities that may arise in terms of deal-driven growth. You will get input not only from me, but all the members on the call will collaborate and serve each other in a mastermind format. To sign up for the free mastermind, go to www.coreykupfer.com/dealden. That's coreykupfer.com/dealden. I'll see you there. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.